You are listening to the Pro-Black Perspective on KWAZ Radio. Welcome to the Pro-Black Perspective, where black problems are addressed with black solutions. Your host tonight is the author of the Pro-Black Compendium and Zuberi and the Maroons of Maa, the Pan-African Nationalist, Oni. Oni, what are we discussing tonight?
Earn $5,000 a month through Pan-African Nationalism. To say that sounds like a ruse. It sounds like a scam. To many listeners, they wonder what sort of a con man would say something so outrageous. Yet if I told you that you could earn $10,000 a month as the pastor of a megachurch, you'd wonder why you are being offered so little. It behooves us to call ourselves adults without doing the works of adults. It behooves us to say that we are about liberation if we refuse to do what it takes to liberate ourselves. Our ancestor Delaney shared some words on this subject. Open your Pro-Black Compendium to page 22. Whatever liberty is worth to the whites, it is worth to the blacks. Therefore, whatever it costs the whites to obtain it, the blacks would be willing and ready to pay if they desire it. The white man can claim to be free because he can claim that he pays for his freedom. You cannot. You understand freedom isn't free, but how do you want it? If you have not earned it, you will not have it. I say again, if you have not earned it, you will not have it. Your ancestors had spiritual systems par excellence. They were incomparably wise, potently beautiful, and ethnically yours. But what is your spiritual system today? Around the world, two self-described spiritual systems, religions for short, dominate in popularity: Christianity and Islam. Those same two religions dominate in Africa. This despite the profundity of your heritage. You never understood why. These Abrahamic religions, like their progenitor Judaism, operate on an aggressive code of conduct with one exceptional consistency. And that distinct code common to the three has made it so that they will crush any passive resistance to their objective. One consistent principle has made it so your excellence has become endangered and extinct in many parts of your own land. One principle. Now wonder what it is. You may say they stole from your faith. They have. But so did the Greeks, the Indians, the Chinese, and the Americans. No, the theft of your faith alone is not the core of why you do not practice yours, for you would practice yours if you simply wish to practice your own. You may say it's because they are ethno-national beliefs. Judaism was forged in the context of warring tribes in ancient Israel, and despite the strenuous competition, it somehow survived its enemies, and in the modern world, with its European adapters, has a global reputation for self-interest and prejudice, but it's no worse than Christianity or Islam. These two, more open to more groups, less exclusive in blood relations, its ethno-nationalism has promoted the Western and Central Eurasian as the leaders of global religious thought. But again, you would be wrong if you considered ethno-nationalism as the main determinant, for you too have been ethno-national all along. Name any ethnicity, they are ethno-national. Alas, you may relate that it is the guns that they have. The brutality that they use for their system and the unrivaled savagery at their employ, including but not limited to the kidnapping of children and the indoctrination of their beliefs, and you'll be closer to truth, but not quite there. All Eurasians are savages, and these Abrahamic savages conquered even other savages. So it's not just savagery that decided their worldwide stranglehold. No, the fundamental code of the Abrahamic practices that raises his beliefs to even dominate the lands of your forebears is a simple mathematical code that can be fully explained in one word. After this break.
Greetings, everyone. This is Koku from the Bitter Medicine Podcast, inviting you to tune in to the Bitter Medicine Podcast on KWAZ Radio. Greetings, family. This is Koku, host of the Bitter Medicine Podcast. In case you didn't know, we have an online book club called the Bitter Medicine Book Club. Every month, we will select a book to inspire the Bitter Medicine Podcast listening audience to read along together. At the end of the month, we will have a call-in show and book discussion. This is a great, dynamic way for readers to not only enjoy a book, but also have others to bounce ideas off of. They say if you want to keep anything away from black people, put it in a book. Don't allow this to be true. Head over to bittermedicineblogs.com and subscribe to our newsletter for important updates. Do that today. Join our reading collective today and empower yourselves, your family, and your community. Peace and blessings. You are listening to the Pro-Black Perspective on KWAZ Radio.
Tides, tides, tides. The Abrahamic Eurasian has a religious tax of 10% of one's gross income, and the faithful practice of this 10% contribution has led to the global dominance of these three religious groups. The Christian, the Muslim, and the Jew lead in global politics, economics, and culture, while you, progenitor of the species and fount of civilization, remain in your dark ages, fooling yourself that their triumphs are your triumphs too. Tides is a fool's word. And while taxes may sound less favorable to you, the adaptation of community taxes would and could transform the conditions of your people overnight, catapulting you as it has your enemies into the peak of your potential and the heights of your dreams. For study their religious. As an African, you understand initiation rites. You understand the rite of birth, the rite of adulthood, commonly called the rite of passage, the rite of marriage, the rite of eldership, and the rite of ancestorship. But pay attention. Does the place of Christian worship not christen a newborn? Rite of birth. Some even circumcise the child. Does the place of Jewish worship not welcome a child into adulthood? Rite of adulthood. Don't all these Abrahamic places officiate weddings? Rite of marriage. Don't they all have an internal structure for the older people to preside over the younger? Rite of eldership. And who speaks at a funeral? Rite of ancestorship. They have initiation rites. You have initiation rites. They give their leaders 10% of their gross income. You give your leaders trinkets, food items, and a firm handshake. Then you wonder why the missionary shows up with guns and armed guards, singing praise their warmongerer and pass the ammunition, while your chief wears a mask and waves a staff overhead. You're not doing enough, black people. By gathering 10% from their congregation, their place of worship becomes a haven for professional community organizers. You don't have community organizers. Through the collection of 10%, their place of worship doubles as a community center, hosting mock initiation rites, fostering community development, trust, and codes of conduct. You don't have community centers. In funneling 10% of the community wealth into a handful of individuals they can claim to have principled, though unprincipled, people who are doing well for themselves and can afford to devote themselves to study and advisory role and being available to the least of theirs, you don't have anyone available to you. Paying 10% of their income, they are able to command a sizable war chest to propagate their cultural ways as far as your homeland, receiving in turn unparalleled global wealth. You don't have a community war chest, just war and genocide. What would Marcus Garvey be doing if he were a young man today? Africa for the Africans, may I take your order? Do not laugh. What should be comical and farcical is a reality for many young Africans as we speak. Marcus Garvey could have accomplished so much more if we gave him more, but we refuse to think of what more we could do for our own. Worse, we can't see the continued failure on our part to do for our present so that our future will be different from our past. Open your Pro-Black Compendium. Look at the 8-week disciplinary program. What are the first 4 weeks? Politics, economics, culture, and ethics. It's upon you to be politically, economically, culturally, and ethically active. What does this mean? Politically, who do you regularly meet? Economically, who do you regularly feed? Culturally, who do you regularly read? Ethically, who do you regularly bleed? You must have meetings. Your enemies do. They meet in boardrooms and bedrooms and secret rooms, but they also meet every week in their places of worship, which doubles as a community center. And if not the place of worship, the place of worship. The Klan man meets every week for worship. Where is your place of worship? You must have meetings. You must feed your leaders. Your enemies feed theirs and feed misleaders for you. The Askari race traders have been offered incomparable wealth to deceive and disrupt your ambitions, yet the Ankobia race loyalists have come to expect no monetary gain even in years of sincere service. Many report losses. Others, like myself, can claim a palsy gain, but nothing substantive for over a decade of one's youth and talents. Amilcar Cabral said, "Hide nothing from the masses of our people. Tell no lies. Expose lies wherever they are told. Mask no difficulties, mistakes, failures. Claim no easy victories." For the over 400 well-researched articles that I've written over half a decade, inspiring thousands around the world, and innumerable activities promoting thinkers and thinking, schools and programs, discounting one special individual who understood freedom isn't free, I've earned around a penny for each article. Hosting weekly political meetings was little better. The salary was $10 a year. from an immediate economic standpoint, and strictly from an immediate economic standpoint, it would have been better to beg on the streets for half a day than to devote myself so entirely to the uplift of my race. This thought should never cross an African's mind, but without a war chest, the African must have sense. Create the circumstance where that view is wrong. Don't just say it's wrong. Where is the war chest? You must read your literature. Your enemies read theirs. They have religious texts which are really war manuscripts, prompting their crusades, their jihads, their usury, and their collective solidarity for self-determination and worship. You must read your Marcus Garvey, your Carlos Cooks, and your Onitaset Kumat. Zuberi and the Maroons of Maa elaborates on the world we can build, and the Pro-Black Compendium details how we can build it. You must not only read them once or buy them once. Your enemies have your aunts standing on corners using your aunt's money to pass on your enemy's propaganda. You must not let your enemy be unrivaled. Their religion is shoved down the throats of your youth. You must use our knowledge as a tool to get our children to vomit out the destructiveness of the Eurasian way and imbibe the constructiveness of our own. You must make your enemies bleed. Your enemies bleed you. Every day will be a day for black suffering until you understand this one requirement. Every day, black suffering until you understand this one requirement.
Greetings, everyone. This is Koku from the Bitter Medicine Podcast, inviting you to tune in to the Bitter Medicine Podcast on KWAZ Radio.
Black people face one problem: the problem of ignorance. This is why those who opposed us stole us from our parents, disconnected us from our continent, and enforced on us illiteracy. But now the ignorance is self-inflicted. We send our children to their machines. We detach ourselves from our motherland, and we don't read meaningful literature. Consciousness is a series of stages. The sooner we get to one, the sooner we are ready for the higher. The Pro-Black Compendium accelerates the beginner to the advanced and provides for the advanced an unparalleled breadth. This is the sort of book your enemies do not want you to read, but our ancestors would insist you read twice.
You are listening to the Pro-Black Perspective on KWAZ Radio.
The community tax is the solution for the black race, but it needs to be done intelligently to be done effectively, which means you have 4 options. Option 1, give 10% of your gross income to a local community organizer. If this organizer collects from at least 9 others, their total income will be the same or greater than the 10th highest income. This is a mathematical fact. If the organizer has 20 participants, their total income will be the same or greater than twice that of the 20th. For 30 participants, 3 times that of the 30th. This is basic arithmetic. But to give black servants full and robust incomes, this community organizer can afford a space for the children, the youth, the adults, and the elders. A local leader with a fortune beholden only to black patronage can do for you much more than an ambitious individual who must hustle quietly to make ends meet. Your first option is 10% to a local leader and a place of worship. Option 2. If you are the aforementioned local leader, give 10% of your leadership income to a national community organizer, an international leader, or an Oncobia organization. Same math as before, but those who patronize you effectively give 1% of their income to an Oncobia cause. Collect this 10% from your following, and after limited allowances for yourself, uplift your local community, providing for our people a venue for our community development and self-growth, flipping their investment for a prosperous, independent African existence. The Pro-Black Compendium has meaningful programs you can adopt, and your community can instruct on others, but with a guaranteed income, you can afford to make mistakes and refine an approach to uplift your community, unlike the underfinanced, undercompensated endeavors that likely either rely on your enemy's dollars or dies down and discourages the truly committed. Option 3. Give 1% of your gross income to a national or international Oncobia organizer, organization, or leader. If you can't find a local leader and you'd rather not be one, then put 1% of your regular earnings to the larger causes of the world. Keep to it. Organize others to do the same, and your impact on the world would be that much more impactful than your steady course of non-support. Option 4. Last but not least, if all else fails, find a book or living author, filmmaker, or artist you like, and set 1% of your gross income to purchase their most meaningful literature, films, or artwork. Get it and do what you please with it, whether it's giving it away, reselling it, offering it in a contest, or leaving it in public spaces. If all else fails, patronize your favorite living propagandist and aid directly in their propagandistic goals. Community taxes are 10% or 1%. The computation is straightforward on a paycheck. Find the gross income and disregard every number after the tens place. The final number is 10%. You keep 90%, and Reverend Hoopenholler will assure you that smaller incomes have survived on 90%, and they had no reason to receive returns. Or disregard every number after the hundreds place. The final number is 1%. 99% remains with you, but it's at least 1% your enemy will not touch. For the paycheck of $841.24, which to some is high and to others is low, 10% is $84 and 1% is $8. And as was to be demonstrated, if 30 people with an average gross income of $841.24 every 2 weeks paid 10% to one individual, that individual would earn more than $5,000 a month through Pan-African Nationalism. Option 1 is not for fools. Aim to do option 2, but settle for option 4 if nothing else. Understand, however, that you can demand monthly expenditure reports for option 1. Understand that. Understand that you must allow this worker to have a discretionary fund that they don't need to report. Dates, trips, bills, luxuries. Understand that. Understand that as a group you can be selective with the recipient of your taxes. You can demand results and replace anyone who cons you of your earnings. And though the risk of being burned will be present, you control these taxes, and to grant an unscrupulous individual 10% on a few occasions can be brushed off as a poorly executed scholarship. Do not surrender a tool for your liberation, but rather learn from poor experiences to widen your grasp of character and authenticity, and give the great among you the opportunity they need to be the greatest among all of us. Understand that. See to it that you are giving, and your community will see to it that you are receiving. As Delaney started it, we shall finish it. Whatever liberty is worth to the whites, it is worth to the blacks. Therefore, whatever it costs the whites to obtain it, the blacks would be willing and ready to pay if they desire it. Do you desire freedom enough to make leaders of your people? Or is it only your enemies that will finance pamphlets, missionaries, community centers, ammunition, politicians, and business ventures? What say you?
Greetings, everyone. This is Koku from the Bitter Medicine Podcast, inviting you to tune in to the Bitter Medicine Podcast on KWAZ Radio.
Peace Seeker. This is Oni from the Pro-Black Perspective, and we need power. Power will not be handed to us. We need to build power. But in order to build power, we need a power blueprint. You need to study the best blueprints available. You have Garveys. You have Wilsons. You have Williams. You have mine. Now, you'll have Cooks. Carlos A. Cooks was Garvey's best student. The greatest mind in the world from 1940 to 1966. Yes, the greatest. Yet Whitey doesn't want you to read his blueprint. Cook's blueprint isn't religious. Cook's isn't for integration. Cook's isn't for communism. Cook's isn't even for anti-blacks. Cook's blueprint is for Africa. And Cook's blueprint is the unknown blueprint that was the basis of black power as we know it today. When you say buy black, you're talking about Cooks. When you say black is beautiful, you're talking about Cooks. When you say Malcolm got something right, you're talking about Cooks. But Cook's blueprint was lost, and Whitey is hiding that blueprint behind $1,000 paywall. He's hiding solutions from you, telling you you need to take out a small loan to get the information that can liberate you. Whitey does not want you to have solutions to your problems, but you need solutions. You need power. I will give you the Carlos A. Cooks Reader, valued over $1,000 at a 98% discount, $15. Send $15 to cash.me/$ABSONI with the subject Carlos and your email address, and I'll send you the ebook. We need power. You need blueprints. Start building today.
You are listening to the Pro-Black Perspective on KWAZ Radio.
I am grateful that you listened, and I hope you were motivated. But motivation must stop being a temporary feeling that elicits a smile and a little research into the source of your happiness. The fight on your behalf is an active one, and if you find that another's activities are inspirational, send them more than a fanciful, intangible thought, as mind reading only works on oneself. If you haven't read my books, please get a copy. If you didn't receive a Carlos Cook's reader, be sure to order one. If you're looking to support a living artist, I am still breathing as far as I know. And if you want to do something really nice, get this podcast 1,000 views. Although 10,000 would be better. I am Onitaset Kumat, author of Zuberi and the Maroons of Maa and the Pro-Black Compendium. The speech you just heard was named Earn $5,000 a Month through Pan-African Nationalism, and I seek to include it in an upcoming book that instructs on public speaking. While I write this book, I'd love for my other books to be spread. If you have the Pro-Black Compendium, when you can afford another, say when 1% adds up, please get another copy and give it to a worthwhile reader with the advice that they buy their own if they like it, or give that copy away if they don't. I imagine they'll get their own. If you want to be on this podcast, let me know. We can discuss this subject or another, your choice. Contact me on Twitter at Onitaset, WhatsApp, or drop a comment below. Review the books I've written on Amazon, and if you want to cash at me 1% or anything for that matter, my cash app is $ABS only. Once again, thanks so much for listening. The text for this speech can be found on my website, and it will mean a lot to our race if we start discussing more publicly community taxes and the need for places of worship. Abibi Fahodie, Asante Sana, Shem Miem Hotep. Thank you for listening. I invite you to join hands with your brothers and sisters as we recite the African affirmation together. It's a call and response, so follow my lead. We are an African people, robbed from our homeland, robbed of our names, our languages, our cultures, our religions, our womanhood, our manhood, our sisterhood, our brotherhood, our motherhood, our fatherhood, our selfhood, our nationhood, and our self-respect. But we shall rise, never to fall again. Up, you mighty race, you can accomplish what you will. No justice, no peace. No justice, no peace. No justice, no peace.